We're ready.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you and good evening. Two items for your consideration tonight. The first is Assistant City Manager Bear will present an update on the co-located dispatch project. So there's a couple of items on your agenda related to that tonight. And then that'll be followed by Director Murky, who will discuss recommendations to relocate the Oak Grove Park large shelter.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. I'm really excited to be here tonight to show this presentation showing the progress, because I recall back in 2008, which is many years ago, when this concept was first talked about. And if you recall, we did a pretty extensive study with an outside agency to come in here and do this. And all this has culminated down to it's actually happening. And so we're really excited about it. The project is a culmination between Clay County, Liberty, and Gladstone, and these are these three partners, or these two other partners with us, have been very excited about this as well, and we've had some great success here. I feel like everything is kind of lined up, you know, with the new sheriff coming in. He's very open to this. Our very own Jeff Self, who is the undersheriff with Clay County, has been very instrumental in having this go forward. Liberty, Chief John Mills, up in Fire Chief, has been very good and very supportive of this. A big shout out to the Assistant City Manager up in Liberty, Shauna Funderburk, who's been hugely supportive of this and is kind of running it from their end up there. And then our own Chief Ferris and his Rob Sanderson, who I really wanted up here tonight, but he's not here, actually has moved this thing like so much forward, and everything's kind of worked out well. I put these in because those of us that have sat in City Hall for the last couple of months and felt the vibrations of all the work underneath us, who's had to engage in conversations louder than what we would normally do to overcome the sound of the drills and the hammering going on downstairs. This is like the finish line for us, and so once in a while I pull these up just to take a look at it, to kind of show you know, what we're all waiting for. And this would be the outside of, obviously, the facility here, which with co-located dispatch will be inside of. That would be the employee entrance, or one of the employee entrances. That's where the officers and even the dispatchers will come and go into their workplace. All right, so what's been involved in the process? Well, number one, I got it up there and it's checked, but it has taken this long to get everybody on the same page. So many moving parts to this, so many people that needed to be convinced, and like anything else, change is difficult for everybody, And so I feel we finally got this process moving, because I think everything is aligned. The personnel are in the right place. They're wanting to move this forward. I think the fact that we were redoing our facility and had the opportunity to do this, the Clay County ARPA money came available, so the funding was available for this. And so everything is just kind of lined up to the point where it just seems like this is the time to do it, right? We had to design the facility, and that obviously Hafer had their hands full designing the facility and making it right. We've built this thing out for 11 consoles, actually. So we needed enough room for everybody. We had to work through all the technical hurdles. Big shout out to John Beatles and Keenan Ewing with us, because those guys have worked very tirelessly, and more than Clay and Liberty, although Liberty's done a pretty good job of coordinating with them. But those guys, because that facility is being built here, are the ones that are making all the strides and making sure the technical aspects of this are going to work. We have recently laid fiber into the dispatch area, so we're not going to rely so much on the microwave as our primary link, which I think was pretty vulnerable. Fiber is much more secure, and so we thought, hey, if we're going to bring three agencies in here and work them together, we're going to have to make this thing rock solid. And so you know, our links are good. Our battery backup systems are on top of battery backup systems. Those guys have done a really good job of planning for any failure, the backup, and even a backup to a backup. And so that has fallen on those guys a lot, and they seem to They seem to figure out any aspect or any technical problem or glitch that we come up against, they find a solution for it. We had to secure the funding, and that actually came through Clay County. Some of this funding was through our own bond, but above and beyond the equipment that we needed to buy to expand from what we normally would have done would be 3 consoles to 11 consoles, took funding. And like I said, it just came together with Clay County doing the ARPA funding. We were able to jump in on that. We had to formulate an agreement. That took a while to do. That had to be passed around amongst, first of all, we had to draft it, and then we had to find something, well, to draft it, we had to find something around that was even close to what we were trying to do. And so it's kind of a unique situation here, although I think a lot of people are going to follow suit when they find out how good this, how well this is going to work. We had to pass the agreement around between all the other agencies, and so we had to get feedback, make alterations to the agreement, send it back out, get feedback, make alterations. And a special thanks again to Chris and Williams and John Mullane, because they were so patient as this agreement was being passed around, and we were making edits to it along the way. Finally, I think we've got the final working document, and as City Manager Wingerson had said, that's on your agenda tonight. Is for the agreement. We're going to have the agreement signed fairly quickly after, if it's approved tonight, it's going to be signed very quickly, and we're going to move forward so we can actually start purchasing the equipment that we need. Next up is the purchase of the major equipment. We kind of already started. If you guys remember, we had a service aggregated router a couple council sessions ago. That was like $100,000. That's something we needed anyway for our communications center, but what was unique about that is that you only need one of those routers per dispatch center. So I think Motorola's not really happy with us right now because they lost out on the sale of a $100,000 SAR, they call it a SAR, router to Clay County and to Liberty as well. So we're all kind of doing the same thing and only having to buy one piece of equipment. That's only one example of one of the things that we've bought. The other is the voice recorder. You know, we bought a major purchase on a voice recorder, and all we had to do was just expand the channels out, which is a lot cheaper than buying new recorders. And so in order to record all the radio channels and all the phone traffic that goes on, all we had to do was buy. So we just purchased a voice recorder, and all we had to do was just add on extra channels in order to accommodate Clay County and Liberty, which we've done. So we're on our way to purchasing the major equipment, but again, like on tonight's agenda, we have 11 consoles. That's over $250,000 worth of consoles that we're able to do with the ARPA money that's already been pre-designated for that. Again, that was no easy task because, you know, when you're dealing with three agencies, then, you know, we have to take the consoles and we have to pass it around and make sure that the plans and everything work out for them, and that everybody takes a little vote on the consoles we're going to get. And so it hasn't been easy up to this point, but we finally made the agreement on which consoles we're going to buy. State-of-the-art Cadillac versions. We're not sacrificing anything with these things, and these dispatchers are going to be working with state-of-the-art equipment for sure. Then we're just going to have to make the move, and we're planning that right now. That move is planned for late summer, early fall. This is the initial layout. This is kind of the layout that we've decided on. You got a break area, kitchen, a restroom area, and then Clay County, Liberty, and Gladstone. We'll each have 3 consoles, and we have 2 consoles for future use, for training. If another city decides that they want in on this co-location, we'll have the capacity for that. That's a rendering of what that will look like, kind of an aerial view. We had to work. If you see those 3 beams, those three concrete beams in there, those were non-negotiable. They're already there and they can't be moved. But I can tell you, after they've taken all that out, and if you go down there now, if there is a large tornado that comes through Gladstone, I want to be standing in dispatch, because that's completely concrete. That is a bomb shelter down there. And so that's one of the reasons why this was such an attractive location for this. That's the break room. If you go back, you see the break room area there. The restroom and stuff are going to be there, and then that's where the little break room will be. So artist rendition. They have those lockers right there, is where they'll use those for the day. That's not a locker that will assign, but when you come in, you grab a locker, and that's where you put your stuff for the day. That's a view from looking back at like Clay County section, and you'll see kind of how the consoles are laid out, the lighting. They've kind of got the way they were set up. This provided to us by the console people, so they do these layouts and show you exactly what you're buying and how it's going to look in the configuration that you have. That's another rendering that's looking back from Liberty, and they're looking back towards Gladstone's little area over there. So you can see that they're kind of grouped together, but there's quite a little distance. It's like you got room to breathe back there. We figured 2 people from each agency, although we have 11 consoles, 2 people, maybe 3 per agency. We're talking about 6 or 7 people occupying that space at one time, probably. And then that's just a picture of the console. One of the things that's attractive about this whole thing is when you're co-locating everybody in one space, you have the ability to help another agency out in case they have a crisis. Large fires, big accidents, big crime scenes, a mutual aid response of a lot of equipment. Can be done pretty seamlessly when you're sitting in the same room as the other dispatchers. Putting alerts out over the radio. Let's say Gladstone had an armed robbery and we wanted to get the information out, to all the other responding agencies. It's pretty easy actually to just, turn to your other cohorts that you're sitting with and have them put it out over their air. So we honestly think the communication is going to go a lot better. Plus, if you have a major scene, you have 2 dispatchers on, you don't have much going on, you see another agency is getting slammed, it's easy for them to jump over and help on another console, and that's why that 3rd console looks pretty attractive, even though we're not occupying it, all the time. And then the part of this is you can see the lighting, and they do the fancy stuff, and they etch the stuff in the glass. And so I put that up there just because what we're really trying to do here is not say Gladstone's putting up a dispatch center and then we're inviting Liberty and Clay County to actually co-locate the space. In order to do this and to do this right, you need to instill upon all the other agencies coming over here that this is actually their space as well. And so we decided a long time ago we weren't going to actually just put Gladstone on one glass and leave it there, and then Clay County on that glass over there. And then when we embroider, like you can buy the chairs. When we buy the chairs, you can embroider a logo in there. We're like, let's not embroider just a Gladstone logo on the Gladstone chairs and a Liberty on the Liberty chairs. Let's actually put Gladstone, Liberty, and Clay County on all the chairs. That way we kind of create this feeling that everybody's cooperatively looking, and that Clay County and Liberty dispatchers may be employees of Liberty or Clay County, but they're coming to and arriving to their space. This is their home. This is where they're going to be. One thing that I had on a slide, and I must have skipped over it pretty quickly, was the amenities that they have. They will have 11 consoles, again, state-of-the-art. They will have locker rooms, the male and female locker rooms that were occupied by law enforcement before. They're getting new locker rooms with the new addition. But the old locker rooms we're going to repurpose, redo, and give the dispatchers their own locker room. And so those are lockers that they will be assigned and that they can actually put stuff in. That's where they can go, that each of their locker rooms has a shower. They'll have access. The dispatchers will have access to the workout facility that we're building, for the officers and for law enforcement. They'll have a break area, although it won't have cooking stuff there other than a microwave, but just down a few steps and over, they'll have access to the full kitchen and break room that the law enforcement that's going to be built, with the new addition. So with that, I will field any questions. Again, we're well underway. If you'd go down there right now, you wouldn't even recognize it because it's completely gutted down there. So, and they're starting to build back a little bit right now. We've been told that we're ready for consoles in January or February, but we don't plan on having everything completely online. I want to occupy it for a couple of months to make sure everything's going to work right before we bring other agencies on. So,
comments, questions?
I've got a question. Bob, any chance there's supply chain issues with the equipment that we are going to
yeah, actually with the consoles tonight, that's a great question. With the consoles tonight, they're not dependent on supplies for anything. These are the company Zybex is actually in Colorado, and they build and assemble these right on site. And so they have all the raw materials, and they've assured us there's a 2 or 3 month waiting period just for it to be built. They're not backed up on any supply chains, and best of all, once it's built, they'll hold it and only ship it when we're actually ready to have it here. And with the price of the console comes the full assembly and everything. And so, man, the planning of it has been so good. The architects have all worked with our IT. Every outlet has been mapped out in there. Where every TV is going to sit for the monitoring of all the security cameras. That's all been set. The outlets for those. It's actually pretty cool to see the amount of work that's gone into this. So they know where every printer's going to go. Every printer has a data port, and so it's going to go along really quickly once it really starts.
Other comments, please?
So, Bob, will there be a learning curve for these dispatchers for these new consoles?
Actually, I think the consoles themselves, what you see there on the screen is the TV monitors that we're going to have. Those are strictly just the monitors. The computers, that's the beauty of this whole thing and why it was so right to do this. All of us are on the same computer-aided dispatch system. All of us, all 3 agencies are on the same records management system. All of us are on the same metro area regional radio system. We're on the same radio system. And we're all on the same 911 that goes through Mark. It has the 911. So the screens they have up there and they're looking at are absolutely identical to the screens that we have because we're all operating off the same system. And so the configuration and how it's laid out, the fact that there's curved screens and there's like 6 screens that are all built in like that, that's all going to look new and different to them because, frankly, right now, if you go down to dispatch, they got a screen here, a screen here, a screen over here, and they're kind of, but everything is going to be uniform and like in one position right there. But as far as how the screens look, like with the radio system, all they have to do is, if we have a Gladstone dispatcher decide to go over to the Liberty console that's open and log in their name and password, it's going to pull up the Gladstone screen and they'll think they're in a Gladstone console. That's how easy that is to transverse between, the different consoles. So I don't think there's much of a learning curve. It's just going to be overwhelming for them to walk into this nice of a facility, I think.
So what about noise level when you go from just our dispatch and you add 2 more agencies?
Yeah, I think they take that all into consideration. If you actually see that we're spread out pretty well, and then the acoustical ceiling that's in there, I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. For instance, if you go down to South Patrol where they have a backup radio system down, they got like 40 consoles down there. If you would go down to Kansas City to their 911 center, there's way more than 11 consoles down there that they're operating from. So I think because you're kind of grouped over in a couple different little areas and you have 2 dispatchers working at a time, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I don't think the noise level is going to be too bad.
And so our IT team will be the lead team in case there's a hiccup.
Yeah, if you look at the agreement that
Right.
we put in there, it basically says we'll provide the network. which, you know, John and Keenan have both assured me we have Google and Spectrum, and we haven't been down, you know, since 2012 at all. So we don't have any problems at all with our networks, and we have backups to backups. And so, yes, if there's a network problem, they'll be able to resolve it easier than anybody like for a Liberty IT person. But I will tell you that we have had some communication. We've had group meetings, and Liberty's IT and our IT seem to be working extremely well together as far as sharing information and being on the same page and knowing what they actually need.
This is such a great effort. Really, kudos to everybody involved. This is going to be amazing.
It's going to be fun.
Comments, questions? Yeah, I really, I liked seeing the rendering. I've been kind of trying to envision this, and when you look forward to what we're seeing in the renderings and imagining the people in their own uniforms working the different areas and state-of-the-art councils and state-of-the-art design for co-located dispatch, this is really going to be a model for a lot of folks to come see that are, you know, envisioning maybe going this direction someday, and we're going to have it in a year.
It only makes sense, and again, like the SAR is just like the tip of the iceberg on what I think we can share expenses on, the voice recorder as well. So I mean, it just makes so much sense to share the resources.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
See, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. We have, if you thought co-located dispatch was a challenge, wait till you hear what it takes to move a shelter. It's been in place for over 50 years. So that's one of Austin's jokes, by the way, he told me to say. The Oak Grove Park large shelter has been in place, I'm going to guess, for more than 50 years. I don't have that exact number. We don't have record of that. Maybe Councilman Smith might know, as probably the individual with the most history on the dais tonight. But
we helped build it.
With that being said, we'd like to get the council's reaction to actually moving that shelter. As you can see, the current placement being right here, and the new restrooms were added here. Obviously, the amphitheater came on board many years later, and while the shelter served that well, we now kind of have a cluster of buildings in one location. And in my opinion and staff's opinion, as well as the park board and theater and the park board members, if we were to move it up near the playground, it would better serve park patrons for a couple of reasons. One would be load in, load out from the parking lot. It would be a much easier transition for folks, because right now you'd obviously have to go down the path and get to the shelter that way. And in addition, if you have a family reunion or a kid's birthday party, you're right next to the playground. And so you'd be able to supervise your child while you attend that party or family reunion, as opposed to being down at the large shelter now and having to kind of leave the group and manage your children that way. In addition, with the removal of where the current large shelter is, that would provide a little more grassy area for individuals to be closer to the amphitheater itself during July 4th and Theater in the Park productions. And one other thing is this, kind of started thinking about this back in the spring, and then as we went through the Theater in the Park productions, one more kind of little light bulb went off, and that is the shelter itself is kind of an attractive nuisance during Theater in the Park programs. Kids kind of are a magnet to that area, want to run around it, play in it, what have you, and then that becomes disruptive to the show and or individuals watching the show. So in staff's opinion, moving the location is advantageous in multiple ways. And with that being said, kind of give you a look from the parking lot then. Obviously, you'd pull up, you'd be able to load straight across into the shelter that way, and then the playground's just beyond it there as well. We could actually reserve this space like we did at Hobby Hill. We have a space that's reserved for shelter use only, so that way that individual would have a prime front row parking spot to, again, load their picnic stuff in and back out. So with that quick discussion, I'd entertain any questions.
Comments, questions?
Yes, Mayor. So I think this is a great idea. It's an opportunity, I think, to even increase our revenues on that shelter rental since it'll be so close to the playground. But there's only one thing that I think about, and that is Mr. Harris's bench that is associated with the old shelter. And are we going to remove it and place it at the new shelter, or are we going to contact Mrs. Harris and see if she wants to put it someplace else?
So some preliminary discussions have been had with granddaughter Chelsea, and yes, we would replace that bench right where it is today. So while we would remove it, demo, and then pour a new pad, and then keep it in that same vicinity, and we would certainly visit with the individuals involved with that, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we talked about this a few years ago, one of the hang-ups that we had was the electrical box that was on the one side, and I think we had talked about maybe trying to move it before, but couldn't because moving the electrical box was going to cause a lot of problems.
So we've had some preliminary, let me back up here if I can back up. Oh, no, wrong way. Sorry about that. So that electrical box sits right about there on this corner of the shelter. And we would keep it in place and then build a small, I refer to them kind of as a doghouse, but a small structure that would enclose that and not be quite as an eyesore as it is today. And then run the electrical from that point over to the new shelter. One other thing we would do with this new shelter, which may have not been in the packet back in July, but we will have lighting underneath the shelter. And one other advantage is where the shelter would be relocated, you would be able to see from Troost, where now you can't see the large shelter, it kind of sits down below the hill. So as officers are out on patrol and they're driving by, it'll be lit, we'll be able to see if there's any unwanted behavior going on after park hours.
Justin, is it the same size as the current shelter?
It'll be similar in size. It may not be exact. We do have to look at the lay of the land, so to speak, so it might be not the same shape, but within 100 square feet or so, we're right there close to the same size, yes.
Comments? Good. We're good? All right. Yeah, I did like the idea about being able to make it more visible. I didn't realize we couldn't see it from either the parking lot or the street. So that's another good reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will reconvene for the regular city council meeting in about a minute. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 26th, 2022 regular meeting of the Gladstone City Council. Call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, all the members of the City Council are present and we have a quorum. If everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Mayor, the colors are present. Both colors. Present arms.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order arms.
Thank you. Please be seated. As always, we want to thank the Honor Guard from VFW Post 10906, Carla Gleaton, Charlie Cram, Dennis Perkins, Jim Zimmerman, and Stanley Stoner. Thank you for your service and for presenting the colors this evening. Item 4 is approval of the agenda. We have 2 public hearings, 3 ordinances, a building permit, and a resolution on our agenda, so that's very exciting. Does anyone have any more excitement for tonight's agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Item 5 is approval of the minutes from the September 12th, 2022 closed City Council meeting.
Mayor Garnis,
Councilman Mallon.
I move to approve the minutes from the closed City Council meeting of September 12th, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the September 12th, 2022 closed City Council meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes are hereby approved. Item 6 is the approval of the minutes from the September 12th, 2022 regular City Council meeting.
Mayor Garnis,
Councilman Mallon.
I move to approve the minutes from the regular City Council meeting that was on September 12th of 2022.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the September 12th, 2022 regular City Council meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes are hereby approved. We'll move on to item 7, communications from the audience. Is there any member of the audience that would like to address City Council on a matter that is not on this evening's agenda? Please. Remember to give us your name and address for the record.
I am Abigail Dodonis, and I live at 2905 Northeast 56th Terrace, and I just have a few points to talk about today. I was here, I believe, the last City Council meeting, or the one before, and I brought up my discussion of cleaning up the neighborhoods, and we did do that, and just a few weeks after we cleaned, they were already flooded with more trash. And I would like to bring up the topic that it takes 15 years, so my lifetime, plus 1 year, for one cigarette bud to disintegrate. That's a lot. And there are a lot of them, and the more they get thrown out, the longer it takes to both clean up the city and for them to disintegrate at the same time. Also, I would like if you guys helped me get in contact with someone that could put signs at the entrances of Gladstone to either remark that they will get fined for littering, thank you, or to remind them to not litter. Also, sorry, I would like if you put on the city council calendar, the city calendar, that there is a cleanup day that I would like to be the Saturday before Patriots Day every year, if you can. Help me with that, please. And that's all the topics I have.
Tell them how much trash we got within
Oh,
4 hours.
yeah. Within 4 hours, we got 7 bags of trash and filled up my mom's truck.
Wow. Thank you. I'm glad it was successful. The cigarette butts are one of my pet peeves also. And the other night at Parks and Rec Advisory Board, there was a discussion about putting out some signs along the trail, at least in the Gladstone part, because everybody feels like the people that walk the trails in Gladstone are very responsible. And a little reminder to pick up trash you see. We'll hopefully keep it that way.
I wonder if they could do it at, like, at least the entrance of Gladstone, because that's where we've seen a lot of the trash. It'd be nice to have that area at least clean when people come in Gladstone. They're like, oh, what a clean city. Instead of going, oh my gosh, look at all this trash. You know, they remind people. You know, I don't know how much the fines are. I saw the state fines, I think, are $50 to $75 for littering. I don't know if you have a city fine for more than that, but it would be not, I think that might encourage people not to litter if they know they could get caught and could be paying.
We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
We also did clean up around here.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, it was all clean around here, cleaned up all this that morning. But, yeah, but she needs something continuing. That's why we get signs would be a continuous thing, or if we could do it yearly, have that date.
All right, very good. Thank you. Are there any other communications from the audience on anything? I know we have some new faces in the audience. If not, we'll move on to communications from City Council. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing.
Councilmember Spallo.
I have nothing.
Councilman Mallams.
My gosh. In Hy-Vee today, this is a public service broadcast, I believe. One of the employees from our animal shelter discussed with me that over the weekend, 10 Labrador pups were dropped off at our animal shelter. They're looking for homes. They're newborn, the mother passed away. Oh my gosh, if I wasn't allergic to dogs, I probably would have taken 2. But if you're interested, contact our animal shelter. They should be able to go home in about 3 weeks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman.
You call my wife, we're going to have issues.
You don't need another one. No, you can't have a second. No more.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Since the last meeting, I've had the privilege of attending a 7:30 a.m. meeting of the Northland Regional Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Met with Parks and Rec Advisory Board last week. Also had the privilege of attending the Gladstone Chamber of Commerce's luncheon this week at the Community Center, kicking off the upcoming GladFest activities. Also got to speak last week at the President's meeting for Gladstone's homeowners associations and neighborhood associations. So I wanted to thank Alan Napoli for inviting me and for doing what he could to save me from them. Also looking forward to the dedication of Fire Station number 2 this week. That's a big deal for our city. And to GladFest this weekend, even though I'm getting screwed out of getting to ride at the front of the parade. With that, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of follow-up items. The fire station dedication is this Thursday at 4 o'clock. Anybody who's interested in attending is, of course, welcome. Overflow parking is at the Early Education Center on the north side or back side of that facility. So pay attention to that. GladFest is coming up this weekend, as the mayor said. Big shout out to the city staff and volunteers who come together to make that happen, so appreciate that. Whiskey Fest is also coming up on Saturday, October 8th in downtown at Linden Square. Be over 20 distillers, and tickets are available now. Check out the website for more information, gladstone.mo.us. And Rock Creek Meadows is a prescribed burn either this Thursday or this Friday. That's done for the health of the basin itself and very well supervised, and depends on wind conditions and weather conditions on whether or not it happens. But it's planned for Thursday or Friday of this week, depending on the weather.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on with item 10, the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please explain and read the consent agenda?
A consent agenda allows the City Council to consider and approve routine items of business without discussion. Any member of the City Council, the city staff, or the public may request removal of any item from the consent agenda and request that it be considered under the regular agenda if discussion or debate of the item is desired. Items not removed from the consent agenda will stand approved upon motion by any council member, second and unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda as published or modified. Consent agenda, Resolution R-22-50, a resolution authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Shawnee Mission Ford, Shawnee, Kansas, for the purchase of 4 2023 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor SUV vehicles for the total purchase amount of $169,924. Consider financial report 2 months ending August 31st, 2022.
Thank you. Does any member of the audience request the removal of any item from the consent agenda for discussion? City Council? Mr. City Manager?
No, sir.
Is there a motion?
Mayor Garnis,
Councilman Smith?
move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as listed. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as listed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to the regular agenda. The first public hearing is on a site plan revision at 7510 North Oak Traffic Way. The public hearing is open. During the public hearing, we will hear first from city staff, followed by those in favor of the site plan revision, and then by those opposed. We'll start with city staff. Mr. Greer.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The applicant, Cardinal Crest KC, is proposing to add 28 new parking garages as an additional amenity to their mixed-use development that was initially approved last year. These parking garages will be located on 2 locations on the property. As indicated on the site plan, the locations of the parking garages on the property are the northeast and southwest sides of the property. You can kind of see the yellow circles here. And here, and to give you reference, Christian Brothers Roofing is in that general location, and Aldi's is up here, so you're looking at phase 1 right now. The exterior building materials being used for the parking garages are consistent with the building materials being used on the primary building. The building materials being used are brick, hardy board, and architectural shingles. There are no additional changes to the approved site plan from last year except the addition of these new parking garages. Since the parking garages are a substantial change in the initial site plan, a new site plan must be considered by the Planning Commission and approved by City Council. The conditions I'm about to list are no different than what was approved last year. City staff recommends that the following conditions be considered if the City Council chooses to approve this project request. Number 1, all development signage shall comply with approved city standards. Number 2, all manicured grass and landscaped areas shall be irrigated and maintained in perpetuity. Number 3, tractor trailers shall not be parked or stored overnight. Storage containers shall not be stored on site unless as part of a valid building permit. Number 4, disabled vehicles shall not be stored on site. Number 5, no items shall be stored on resident balconies. Number 6, residents of the development shall not store personal or company trailers on the development site. Number 7, provide outdoor bike racks within the development area to serve residents of the development. Number 8, entry points of buildings shall be secured 24 hours, 7 days of the week, year-round. Number 9, dumpster and storage areas shall be enclosed on 4 sides with materials consistent with the primary building and adequately screened from public view. Trash service shall be scheduled between the hours of 7 o'clock a.m. and 10 o'clock p.m. Number 10, a fire sprinkler system shall be installed and comply with the 2018 International Fire Code standards. City staff recommends that the request be approved contingent upon the conditions listed. Thank you. To add to that, I don't believe the developer is here tonight, so I'll try to field any questions if you guys have them. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Please, Mayor.
Austin, just to verify, these are all one-car garages, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And the Planning Commission approved this, correct?
Unanimously.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Thank you.
The building permit is also on the agenda tonight as well, so thank you.
Is there anyone here who would like to address City Council in favor of the site plan revision? If not, is there anyone who would like to address City Council in opposition to the site plan revision? Any further testimony from the audience, city staff, questions from council? Hearing none, I will declare the public hearing closed. We'll move on with item 12. First reading of bill number 22-34, an ordinance approving a site plan revision for property at 7510 North Oak Traffic Way.
Mayor Garnis,
Councilman Mallon.
I move to place bill number 22-34 on its first reading.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 22-34 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-34 on its first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading bill number 22-34, an ordinance approving a site plan revision for property at 7510 North Oak Traffic Way.
Mayor Garnes.
Councilman Mallon.
I move to approve the first reading of bill number 23-34, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 22-34, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-34 on its second and final reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading bill number 22-34, an ordinance approving a site plan revision for property at 7510 North Oak Traffic Way.
Mayor Garnes.
Councilman Mallon.
I move to accept the second and final reading of bill number 2334 and enact it as ordinance number 4.611.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of bill number 22-34 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.611. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Spallo?
Aye.
Councilman Mallon?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Garnes.
Aye. Bill number 22-34 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.611. We'll move on to item 13, consideration of a building permit for 7510 North Oak Traffic Way.
Mayor Garnes.
Councilmember Spalvo.
I move to approve the building permit for 7510 North Oak Traffic Way.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the building permit for 7510 North Oak Traffic Way. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the building permit for 7510 North Oak Traffic Way signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The building permit is hereby approved. We'll move on to item 14, a public hearing fixing the annual rate of levy for the 2022 real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Gladstone, Missouri. The public hearing is open. Again, during the public hearing, we will hear first from city staff, followed by those in favor of the annual rate of levy, and then by those opposed. Start with city staff, Mr. Arcuso.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So we're going to discuss the property tax levy revenue for 2022 for the city of Gladstone. Something to always consider when we're looking at this is only the city's portion of property tax. So the city's portion of property tax is about 10% of what you'll pay in total property tax. So the other 80–90% is, school districts, county services, things like that. So this is just for the city's portion of the property tax. So the way the process works, we usually get a preliminary valuation in June. We take those numbers. Usually we have to advertise the numbers from the preliminary valuation because the final valuations are not available before we have to advertise the public hearing. So we take the numbers from June, we make some assumptions, and fingers crossed those assumptions are pretty good. Once we get the final valuations in September, the first or second week, we take those numbers, plug them into the state auditor's calculations, and we get our approved rates. We submit that, we get notification back from the state auditor, and there we go. So the rates that we're about to talk about, they have been approved by the state auditor, so they are final. And I got a little bit ahead of myself. So the next slide just kind of shows between 2021 and 2022. So I know this is kind of in the news a lot, so there's a lot of differences between Clay County, Jackson County, and Johnson County. So again, this is just for us. So total revenue for the city of Gladstone is projected to increase by about $111,000. So not much, it's about a 3.5% increase. Actually, this here is the pro forma information, so this assumes that 100% of all property tax is going to be collected. The city average is about 95% per year. So that number is a little bit higher than what we will actually recognize as revenue this year. For the 2022 valuation and property tax levy, we have residential valuations of $312,701,760. The state auditor approved rate is 0.751. That will be revenue to the city of $2,348,390. Agricultural land is $558,930. The approved rate is 0.478. Sorry, 6. Total revenue for agricultural land is $281. Commercial property, $84,811,867. The approved rate is 0.729. Total revenue for commercial commercial property, $618,279. So total real property revenue for the city is $850,140. $2,966,949. Total personal property valuations are $91,511,309. The approved rate on that is 0.929, and that'll give total revenue of $850,140. So total property valuations, $489,083,866. Total revenue to the city for property tax, $3,817,889. The next slide is just kind of an analysis of what we usually collect compared to what we budgeted. As you can see, in 2022, we did receive $3,460,255. Of course, these numbers are unaudited right now. And you can see that, according to the pro forma from the state auditor, we were supposed to get $3,650,373. So again, that's about 95% of that total collection. So what we budgeted for 2023 is about $3,572,000. If you take that 95% of that number that we projected, that's about $3,626,000. So we're right about that area. So pretty good for some assumptions made back in February of this year. So with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Mr. Arcuso? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here who would like to address City Council in favor of the annual rate of levy? And if there was, I would be surprised. Anyone who would like to address City Council in opposition to the annual rate of levy? Any further testimony from audience, questions? Hearing none, I will declare the public hearing closed. We'll move on with item 15, first reading of bill number 22-35, an ordinance enacted pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute section 67.110, fixing the annual rate of levy for the 2022 real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Gladstone, Missouri. Is there a motion?
Mayor Garnis.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to place bill number 22-35 on its first reading.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 22-35 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-35 on its first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, bill number 22-35, an ordinance enacted pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes section 67.110, fixing the annual rate of levy for the 2022 real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Gladstone, Missouri.
Mayor.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the first reading of bill number 22-35, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 22-35, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? No. Hearing none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-35 on its second and final reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, bill number 22-35, an ordinance enacted pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes section 67.110, fixing the annual rate of levy for the 2022 real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Gladstone, Missouri.
Mayor Garnis.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the second and final reading of bill number 22-35 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.612.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 22-35 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.612. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Spello?
Aye.
Councilman Malum?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Garnis.
Aye. Bill number 22-35 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.612. We'll move on to the first reading of Bill number 22-36, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Clay County, Missouri and the City of Liberty, Missouri for the co-location of public safety answering points.
Mayor Garnis.
Councilman Smith.
Move to place bill number 22-36 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place Bill number 22-36 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of placing Bill number 22-36 on its first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill number 22-36, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Clay County, Missouri and the City of Liberty, Missouri for the co-location of public safety answering points.
Mayor Garnis.
Councilman Smith.
Move to approve the first reading of bill number 22-36, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of Bill number 22-36, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of placing Bill number 22-36 on its second and final reading, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 22-36, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Clay County, Missouri and the City of Liberty, Missouri for the co-location of public safety answering points.
Mayor Garnis.
Councilman Smith.
We approve the second and final reading, bill number 22-36, and act as ordinance number 4.613 as of this date.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 22-36 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.613. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Spallo?
Aye.
Councilman Malum?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Garnis.
Aye. Bill number 22-36 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.613. Item 17, Resolution R-22-51, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Zybex Systems Incorporated for the purchase of 11 dispatch consoles and associated furniture for the co-located Emergency Services Communications Center in the amount of $257,845.81.
Mayor Garnis.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore.
I move for the adoption of Resolution R-22-51.
Second. 2 seconds. You go first. Ladies first. No, ladies first, I insist.
Second.
It's been moved and double seconded to adopt Resolution R-22-51. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting Resolution R-22-51 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution is hereby adopted. Item 18, is there any other business for City Council this evening?
Mayor,
Councilman Malums.
I'd like to make a motion to reconvene the City Council in the closed city meeting in pursuant to revised Missouri statutes, Open Meeting Act Exemption 610.021 for personnel, which is 610.021.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to go back into closed executive session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, I think we have to do a roll call vote. Thank you. Excuse me, just a second. Yes, sir?
I thought Scott was going to talk about the Airbnb. He didn't bring it up, and I thought he was.
Ah.
I didn't want you to close, but we don't have our hearsay.
I don't know if that was in your plans this evening, Mr. City Manager?
No. I attended the Carriage Hills HOA meeting, and that went very well. The property owner was at the meeting and got to hear from the residents directly about their concerns, and we're following our process as we've been over before. And I'm not sure what else I could talk about.
give us the rundown, what you guys are doing, how long it's gonna take to get him this shut down and get people who were in for a year or so. This last week, there's been all kinds of people in and out. We don't know who's who over there.
How about this, Mayor? Maybe I could give Mr. Gillum a call in the morning, and we could go over it, and I could explain where the city's at exactly.
Yeah, because we have been making a process. That works? Does that work?
Thank you.
You bet. So it's been moved and seconded to go back into closed executive session following the meeting. It's been moved and seconded, then we'll do a roll call vote.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Spallo?
Aye.
Councilman Mellon?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Garnis.
Aye. We'll reconvene a regular city council meeting in 2 weeks on October 10th. We are reconvening in closed session.
Abigail, good job. Keep it up.